What's up, man?
Not a damn thing. It was a bad weekend for your historically black colleges.
Yeah, the historically black colleges. It was good for their finance department and for them bringing in monies and playing these big,
But you know what could have made it a little easier on all these students who are tailgating at these historically black ass whippings that went on? The Eton Corp Solar Ruckus. That's
right. George nailed it. Even if your team was losing, you could have been using one of these bad boys, 8 speakers, Bluetooth enabled, powered by the sun because it's solar power. We're giving away one. It's valued at $200. We're giving away one to whoever can leave the best comment telling us what they would do if they won one. Also, the Eton Corporation is giving away one. They started their contest off on Labor Day, and all you have to do is tweet them at Eton Corporation your best tailgating photo. And they're going to determine who had the best tailgating photo, and they're going to send you one as well. Don't forget to include the hashtags Eton Tailgates. Now, let's start with Thursday Night Football. Clemson going up against North Carolina State.
Oh, good. I'm glad you weren't talking about the pros there for a second, because, whew, jeez, oh, criminy. Clemson and Florida State are going to be the teams that beat out of the ACC, and I think whichever one of those schools remains undefeated has a real shot at playing for the national title this year.
I think you got to include Miami in that, too.
Well, we'll get there, but you said you want to start on Thursday.
Yeah. Clemson did what they had to do, but Clemson did what they had to do. I mean, I thought that they would probably dominate NC State, but it was in NC State.
But it's tough when you play one of those schools that you play a lot. It's like when Duke goes and loses to like Wake Forest or something in basketball. You don't expect it. But dude, when you play inside your own conference, it's a rival. You play them all the time. You see them all the time. It's tough, and you're on the road. So yeah. I mean, to me, that was a big win for Clemson to go on the road at NC State and win. That's showing a lot.
It is, and they've got. I mean, I don't have their schedule in front of me, but the ACC is not as deep, obviously, as the SEC. Like we said last week, the ACC is coming into its own. You're starting to see some good play out of them. Let's go, Gus. Now let's talk about yesterday, and we'll start with Alabama, who just rolled past Colorado State, 31-6. Alabama continued to do what they need to do. Ohio State continued to do.
Dude, hold on. Lou Holtz had the audacity to sit there and say that he thinks Ohio State shouldn't be the #1 team in the country because their offense is underperforming. I'm sorry, but since when do we give teams ranks on how they should or shouldn't be playing? All that matters is wins versus losses.
He said that about Ohio State?
No, I'm sorry, Alabama. My bad. He said Alabama shouldn't be the #1 team in the nation because their offense is underperforming.
You know what the one thing I will say about Nick Saban, he doesn't go too crazy on like teams that Alabama can beat. He does not keep his starters in there, man. Like he doesn't take a chance. Like he just doesn't. He plays his season very methodically. That's why at the end of the season he's usually sitting there with 0 losses or 1 loss and a national championship. And that's why Texas is all up in his asshole trying to get him there. He has a way of doing it. He doesn't sit there and go, okay, I'm going to throw up 60 or 70 points on fucking Colorado State. It's not worth it because I might get one of my starters hurt. I'm going to bring some other guys in, let them get some playing time, and that way we can move forward without any injuries. I mean,
I'm going to tell you what, I don't think they're as deep as they have been in years past either.
Right, and those guys, those guys need playing time. Like those guys that are not starting need playing time, and that's how you create your depth. And that's why when these guys go into the pros, and he has a crazy turnover, but he's able to have somebody come in, plug in and play, and bam, they're a fucking superstar next year. So, I mean, Lou Holtz has got to get his shit straight. He's got to realize that, that this guy is.
Well, that Daffy Duck motherfucker needs to retire.
and which, who's funny as shit is him and what's the other guy that's on College Game Day who puts on all the
Lee Corso?
Lee Corso is fucking crazy. He's to the point, Lee Corso is like, he just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
No, he's like your granddad who, when you go to your family reunion, your granddad at some point is going to end up in his underwear. Right. You just know that shit's going to happen. I can tell you right now, if you go out with Lee Corso, I will bet by the end of the night that motherfucker's drunk as shit, banging hookers in the butt while screaming hallelujah.
He does not give a fuck. I'm watching the other guys react to some of the shit he says. He's like, you know what, man? I've been doing this shit for years. I don't care. I'm getting paid. I'm going to say what the fuck I want. And it's just hilarious.
Exactly.
He's the best part of the fucking College Game Day. Anyway, going on to Ohio State, they did what they had to. What's interesting is now they have the second-string quarterback and that throws for 6 touchdowns, an Ohio State record, but he obviously did it against Florida A&M, another historically black college that's hating it. But Ohio State is just, when you can bring another quarterback in and produce that type of offense and, and then snuff a team out, they're good on both sides of the ball, like you said last week, George.
They're a complete team. It'll be they just play a soft ass schedule. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sold. Let's see, who do they have left? Wisconsin at Northwestern. Ohio State just doesn't have that. I don't see Penn State at Purdue, at Illinois, Indiana, at Michigan. The at Michigan game is going to be tough, but I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to destroy Michigan. Michigan is so god-awful. They are so overrated.
And dude, I'm telling you, what did I say last week? I said, I think UConn can upset Michigan. It almost fucking happened.
Mm-hmm.
It almost happened, everybody. I mean...
Michigan went to UConn, who's been, I think, playing D1 ball now for maybe this might be their second or third season as recognized as a D1 school. Mm-hmm. So I'm tipping my hat to that coach in that school because to have Michigan come in and only lose by 3 points, that's fucking pretty impressive.
It looks good. So I think they're overrated. I think a lot of the Big Ten is kind of weak, and that's like last week when we were talking about Maryland. You said, hey, Maryland is coming over they're going to get housed in the Big Ten. I'm like, I don't know. Because it's like, I think next year the ACC might be tougher than the Big Ten.
And I tell you what, depending on who Maryland has coming back, and I don't know, they're going to be pretty. I mean, they are doing the knock on Maryland last year is they weren't putting away the teams they should be putting away. They were playing down to their opponent's level. This year they're not. This year they're like, all right. This year they're showing the Big Ten what they're going to be getting. I just hope it continues into next year.
They housed West Virginia 37-0. It's the first time that Maryland had beat West Virginia in 7 years. And what I called George up and I said, what a lot of people didn't understand about the Terrapins is, Randy Edsall came. Everybody expected them to be contenders in the ACC. But last year, they had 5 quarterbacks. Their starter, who's starting now, got hurt in fall practice. Then it came with another quarterback that got hurt the first game. 4 games later, the third-string quarterback got hurt, blew his ACL. Then they had another guy come in, the fourth quarterback for the season. He got hurt, and then they ended up with a 5th quarterback that was either like a defensive lineman or a receiver or something. And that's why they took all the losses at the end of the year. They literally went through 5 quarterbacks. So, I mean, now, you can't... To
what you just said, I would love to see one defensive lineman in the NC2As play quarterback.
I wonder if they could, It could happen.
I'm pretty sure. I think it was like a linebacker or a corner.
Yeah, it was somebody. I think it might have been a corner. And they just couldn't put together anything. But now they look pretty good. So far. So you can't get high. They've got to wait till they get into the ACC schedule, which happens in 2 weeks, and that's when they play Florida State. Now, if they can beat Florida State, who right now is sitting at 8th in the country. Then now all of a sudden,
wow, that'll catapult them up the ranks.
That'll catapult them up the ranks. But that still, remains to be seen. Now, let's go to your boys LSU, who got it done against Auburn.
Let's go to them. And you know what? Let me tell you what. If these fellas can run the table, there's no reason they shouldn't be number 1 in the country. Because I'm gonna tell you what, Alabama's sitting there pretty with their soft ass schedule. LSU next week plays at Georgia, at Mississippi State, then home versus Florida, then at Miss. Those are their next 4 games. If they run those, they should easily be in the top 3, maybe even the number 2 team in the country if Alabama hasn't slipped. Because then they get a week off playing Furman, and then they have to play at Bama.
I think LSU, beat Auburn 35-21. I am definitely one of these people that thinks Georgia's a little overrated. They're still sitting at 9. I think they're sitting at 9 right now because they're in the SEC. I really truly think that. I think when LSU plays Georgia, I think LSU right now might be the best team in SEC, and they're sitting back at number 6. Everybody's kind of sleeping on them, and people sleep on Les Miles all the time. And the next thing you know, bam, they're in the SEC championship. But the problem is, like George said, they got a fucking tough schedule, and it's hard to get through that year without copping one loss. It's just
that's why the playoff system will benefit a team who actually plays people, who actually goes out there and has to play a tough schedule week in and week out. I mean, their give me games were University of Alabama, Birmingham, Kent, and Furman. Other than that, I think every other game on this schedule is going to be a tough one. I mean, they have to play A&M, Arkansas, at Bama, at Mississippi State, and at Georgia. Go look at Alabama's schedule and get back to me.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Now, let's go with the rest of the SEC. Other games that were, not significant. Obviously, UCLA beat the shit out of New Mexico State, and then Miami just housed Savannah State, another historically black college, hating it. And Washington crushed.
And the biggest loss this weekend came to Florida. Even though Florida won, they lost their starting quarterback to a broken leg. Right.
I mean, and they managed. He broke his leg in the first quarter. They ended up beating Tennessee 31-17. But like George said, now man, they're fucked. I think that just pulls. I mean, just in the SEC, losing your starting quarterback, and even though you ended up winning the game yesterday, it's hard to just pull that. Think that you're going to be able to run the table. You've already had one loss, and then you're going to be able to run the table and not get another loss without your starting quarterback. That's like next to impossible in the SEC.
Yeah.
This was another interesting one. Notre Dame and Michigan State.
Notre Dame's overrated as shit. Whatever they got to do to get that quarterback back, they need to. Hopefully he makes it back next year, because without him, they are a shell of that team that they were last year. I understand they don't have Eifert and they don't have some other key pieces, but they are not a good-looking football team.
Right. They're not, man. I mean, they struggled against Michigan State in Notre Dame, in South Bend. Michigan State, held them to only 17 points. And basically, it was a really good close game until the end. I mean, it's Michigan State. The problem it's just Michigan State's offense. They have a nasty defense, but if they could have put together just one final drive, they could have won this game and got out of South Bend with the win. Michigan State, another team in the Big Ten. I think the next best team in the Big Ten is the team I'm about ready to bring up, and I think that's Wisconsin. They obviously got a loss, but they're sitting at 3-1. They're ranked 24th in the country, and they just went right through Purdue yesterday, 41-10.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, in my opinion, the difference between the top team in the Big Ten and the second team is so huge. I think there's a giant discrepancy, whereas the SEC, I think the top 3 or 4 schools are all pretty, all within a player or two of each other. Yeah. I just think Ohio State is so far head and shoulders above the next best team in the Big Ten. It's not even funny. Yeah. I mean, I don't think any team in the Big Ten's got a shot at beating Ohio State. Those guys ran the table last year, and it looks like they're on pace to do it again. I don't foresee them losing at all. Yeah. And they're just nasty. I mean, not taking anything away from Wisconsin, but at 3-1, dude, good luck.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I forgot a team that's actually got really good. Used to be so terrible, and they're like one of the front runners in the Big Ten now. And it's funny how the power shifts. It's Northwestern. I forgot about them. I mean, they're actually. That's probably they're 4-0. Nebraska's had a loss. Wisconsin's had a loss. All the other decent teams in the Big Ten have already got a loss early in the season. And I know I sound like a fucking broken record, but that's why I think Maryland can come in here and maybe do okay, because it's like these teams are all rebuilding, or they're not recruiting anymore. And you look at Northwestern, who obviously got a new coach, and Northwestern for 3 or 4 years, they just were terrible. I think they had like one loss, or hadn't won they had like a 27-game losing streak at one time back 10 years ago. They're like one of the best teams in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I don't know what that speaks to, the recruiting at Northwestern or how bad the Big Ten is.
I have no idea. And I mean, they've got a win over California in California.
It's impressive.
They beat Syracuse, they beat Western Michigan, and they just beat Maine. So not next week, but in 2 weeks, they play Ohio State. So that'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think next week the big game for me is going to be LSU playing at Georgia at 3:30 on Eastern Standard Time. That's the one game I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, for all you folks who are just watching this because we talk about college football and you like to hear Kevin and I's voices, that's kind of strange. But tune in next week at 3:30. I have a feeling you're going to see a really good game.
Yeah. I mean, because, in Georgia is always going to be fucking tough. I mean, it's, I just think, though, I think your boys are going to pull it out, man. I really do. I think LSU
I hope they pull it out and lay it on them.
Mm-hmm. I think if they get off to a good, you know what? Les Miles is a great coach. Even if they fall behind, he has a way of staying in games and winning at the end. So we'll see what happens next week. Anyway, guys, don't forget. Go ahead. Don't forget to tweet at Eton Corporation your best tailgating photo, and you'll have a chance to win the Eton Ruckus XL. We're also giving one away. Don't forget to leave your comment below saying what you would do if you won one. We are out of here. Deuces.